Good evening. Welcome to the Elyria City Council meeting for February 3rd, 2025. At this time, we'll take a moment of reflective silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Sarah, would you please lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Sarah. At this time, I'd ask the audience if they can turn your phones to the silent mode or off out of respect for the council chambers during the meeting. Mr. Clerk, I have roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sira.
Here.
Mr. Armstrong.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tolet.
Here.
Mr. Lippian. Mrs. Sawerka.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
We have one absent. We have an excuse for Mr. Lippian.
We have an excuse from Mr. Lippian.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Question.
We have a question. Mr. Oswald wanted to make the...
Thank you, Mr.
comment.
President. I guess I just had a question because I don't know if this has come up very much, but Mr. Lippian's going to be gone for a while, and I appreciate him doing his duty with the government. One's wondering how we're going to handle his responsibilities if he is gone for quite a while in his duties of the office. And then I guess I was just curious, for my own sake, does he still get paid for doing this and how long? So I guess I was just maybe asking the law director to chime in if she had some answers on those questions.
Law Director Deary.
Through you, Mr. President. Well, as far as absence, the issue of whether to be excused or not is in the charter, and that would be up to the rest of you up here on the dais. As an elected official, all elected officials receive a salary, not subject to things such as sick time or personal time, leave, et cetera. So yes, pay will continue. And I'm sorry, I may have missed one of your other questions.
Just the responsibilities and the duties.
Well,
Who handles that?
that would be a matter, through you, Mr. President. Obviously, the residents of the ward are free to reach out to any direct members of residents or direct city officials, council at large, and I believe that Mr. Lippian has indicated that he has made some arrangements for issues in his ward to be directed to some other residents. There's no provision for, proxy vote, so clearly that will be, his seat up here will be empty until his return.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Tolet?
He's going to serve in the U.S. military, maybe the highest honor that there is, and I will continue to vote yay on all his absences. And I'm confident that the residents of his ward would support that as well. And as a member of council at large, we will assist in any way possible to help him in the residents of his ward. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Call for the question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Public hearings.
There are none.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Mitchell.
Second.
By Mr. Center. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Brubaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Over the last week, we've had two longtime employees retire from the city. Last Wednesday, Gina Rothgary, after 30 years, most recently in the engineering department, retired. So we wish her well on her future ventures. Was a very outstanding employee in the multiple departments and positions that she had with the city over the last 30 years. And then yesterday, we had, after 30 years of serving the Elyria Police Department, Lieutenant Frank. Lee Frank retired and has moved on to other capacities as well. Where that leaves us now is we currently have 83 sworn officers. That includes the 3 in the academy right now and the 2 that are currently in training. I know there's a lateral opportunity coming up as well as a test later this year, but that's where we're at on sworn officers. Also with us tonight, if Mr. Ferboda would like to stand, Mr. Ferboda is a senior at Elyria High School. He'll be graduating early. I believe he's just going to be turning 17, and will be attending Miami University. And as a part of his senior year, in lieu of taking finals, if any of you remember taking those, he'll be spending about 75 hours with us over the next few months, seeing how government works. And as a political science major is what his plan is, to kind of see how the federal, the state, and the local works. So he's already been throughout City Hall and met with some of the department heads, and we have some other things planned for him over the next few months as well. So you may see him at some meetings to get his hours. You may see him roaming around City Hall with another employee, but that's Mr. Seth Ferboda. Thank you, Seth. And if there's anything else you have questions for me, I'll be open.
Any questions for the mayor? Ms. Sawerka?
Thank you, through you. Is the test set for police chief yet? Whether maybe the safety service director knows the answer.
Thank you. Through you, it is being scheduled. I have not been given the exact date. There's a couple of questions that are going to be discussed at the next civil service meeting to determine the totality of the test. And so once those things are answered, we'll be able to identify the exact date and time.
Ron?
Through you, President. With Lieutenant Frank retiring, will Officer Thacker be in charge of the FBI facility plans that are coming?
Actually, is that who it is? There you go. Officer Thacker will be, Sergeant Thacker.
Any other questions for the mayor? Very good. Safety Director, Mr. Paranowski.
I don't have a particular report this evening, Mr. President, but I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for the director? Good. Finance Director Plesky.
Thank you, Mr. President. January is in the books, and January brought us 3 paydays as opposed to the normal 2. There's 2 months out of every normal year where we have 3 pays. We're starting 2025 off with a 3-pay month, which was January. We implemented the fire department raises, and the 29 policemen and the 17 firefighters that were in the ARPA fund are now in the general fund completely. So that all being said, the cash balance in the general fund dropped $1,240,483 in January. So in other words, expenditures exceeded revenues by $1,240,483. That's in the general fund. So we're not starting the year off too good, but just wanted to give you that information.
Very good. Any questions for the Finance Director? Ms. Sawerka?
Thank you, through you. I had asked this a few months ago. Do we have any better idea of the additional property tax revenue that will be coming in because the new property taxes are out and people are starting to pay them?
Yes, through you, Mr. President. I guess the estimate is about 1.3 million extra. And of course, that is split between general fund, general bond retirement fund, police pension fund, and fire pension funds. Not evenly, but some goes in each of those funds. But 1.3 is the estimated increase.
Any other questions for the Finance Director? Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, through you, are we seeing any tax revenue from the marijuana sales yet?
No, from what I understand, we won't receive anything until June or July. I still have not heard how much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Very good. Law Director Deary.
Good evening. Through you, Mr. President. I would like to request that council would adjourn into executive session towards the end of the evening's agenda for purposes of discussing collective bargaining agreements, also an update on pending litigation. And other than that, I have no report for this evening.
Any questions for the Law Director? Very good. Lear Police Department, Captain Grooms. Acting Chief.
I think this is on already. Yep. Through you, Mr. President. Much of what I planned to report was already discussed. However, I just wanted to add that tomorrow we'll be promoting Sergeant Michael Mahoney to lieutenant and Patrolman Anthony Weber to sergeant. That'll be held here in council chambers at 3 p.m. if anyone would like to come. Other than that, I'd just like to answer any questions or take in any concerns you may have.
Ms. Sawirka?
Thank you, through you. Did the FBI decide to stay in our building? I think there was some talk of they were leaving, or was there a new agent in charge, or?
When Casey Carty left, they did replace him. We have now 2 and sometimes 3 agents working out of the department, so it's actually expanded a bit.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Area Fire Department, Chief Pernesti. Any questions for the chief? Mr. Oswald?
Yeah, just one, Mr. President, thank you. So I drove down past the police station, and were they doing a practice run on using their hoses and fire trucks on the house that backs up over there?
Well, it was a little bit more than that, but yes, we were practicing. Yes, we were training over there. We'll be there the next 3 days.
Okay, is that one of the houses that we're going to be taking down? Okay, thank you.
Yep. Very good. Any other questions for the chief while he's there? Thank you, Chief. Assistant Safety Service Director, Ms. Calvert. Okay, any questions for Assistant Safety Director? Oh, Ms. Sawirka.
Thank you, through the chair. A while back, there was a notation that the new developers over there, the church on the corner of Chestnut by Dewhurst, was going to be talking to council. Is that still pending? Will we be hearing from them? Will I be hearing from them?
Through you, Mr. President, I believe you're speaking of Love Retail?
Yes.
Yes. So they are working through some of the logistical issues right now.
Okay.
And formulating a game plan to secure that property and move forward with a plan for utilities and all that good stuff. So it's been a little bit delayed, and we look forward to having some more information hopefully soon in the next month or so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Calvert? Good. Engineering, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. Nothing new to report, but I just wanted to just remind council that it's getting close to be that time of year to start submitting streets so that we can start going out there grading them and preparing estimates and whatnot. So if you could please start thinking about the streets and let us know.
Oh, perfect timing for Ms. Mitchell to segue in.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. Snyder, are we still going to have the ride-alongs with Mr. Forthover?
If you would like one, yes.
We would like one. I would, thank you. So as you all heard Mr. Snyder say, get your streets together. We're going to start on that real soon. My favorite time of year. Mrs. Orca.
Mr. Schneider, then Ms. Sawirka.
Through you, Mr. President, to Engineer Schneider, is there any update on the status of the grants for the sidewalks in the Hilltop Park area? Golf and Burn?
No status
Abby?
yet. I can tell you that they, in the initial documentation that they put out, or newsletter, they stated that it would be early February, but they didn't say when in February. So I'm expecting it in the next week or so. We should hear whether or not we were successful or not. It is still a rolling grant, so every quarter they do allow, even if you don't get it this quarter, you can apply for next quarter, or they might even roll them over. I'll find out in regards to that.
Great, thank you.
Good. Ms. Sawerka?
Thank you, through you. Ward 3, a number of my street repairs were concrete repairs, so are those going to get done this year, or they're going to roll over? Should we put those on our list plus?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, those will continue in the early spring. I'll forward the list on to council as far as what streets haven't been completed yet. There are a number of wards that are, a few concrete roads haven't been done, largely in yours, I believe.
Okay, and then if, my same question I'm going to ask you, if we've heard from the railroad on East Bridge.
I have not heard from the railroad. I have heard from one of the railroad's consultants in regards to going out there and doing borings and additional borings. So it's still moving along as far as I know. They're not giving me a lot of information still, but yes, it is still moving forward as far as I know.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Schneider. At this time, I'm going to have Nick come up from First Energy. I would be remiss if I don't want to mispronounce your name, so I'll call you Mr. Nick's fine.
There we go. Nick, appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Council. Appreciate your time. My name's Nick Katsaris. I'm your contact over at First Energy. I know I've known most of you for quite some time, but wanted to make sure that you knew who I was. Today, I wanted to come and talk to you about the reporting a streetlight outage through our website. I know obviously it's a major issue in all of your wards, reporting streetlights and having streetlights repaired in a timely manner. And I understand, just want to make sure that you're aware that residents and yourself can do that through our website. It's a very easy process. Just wanted to make sure that you're all aware of that. I can walk you all through this personally, but basically if you go to firstenergycorp.com, there's a tab on the bottom called Customer Support or Request a Service, and then it will direct you to the streetlight option. Basically, it'll ask you if there's an outage or if it's just a street light, and just click, it's just a street light, and then it'll ask you if there's multiple street lights or one. If there's multiple, please click multiple, not just the one. Our crews will generally work off the ticket that they have, and if it's saying one street light that's out, because a lot of times they're doing the repairs during the day, so they will repair just that one street light. So if it's multiple, please click multiple. And here's the most important thing. The next section will be, it'll ask you for your account number. The next section is just click next. That catches a lot of people off guard because I don't know what my account number is. I don't know what my email I signed up for. Just click next and it'll move you over to the next tab. And then basically we'll just ask for your contact information and the location of that street light, and you just hit submit. So it's a pretty quick, easy process, and you can do it from your phone, or the residents can do it from their phone. And the most important thing is it'll give you that work request order. So that means that the street light ticket has been submitted. And then if you are seeing issues with these streetlights not getting repaired in a timely manner, just please send me that work request order, and then I can look it up in our system very quickly to just kind of see what the notes are for that individual streetlight outage that needs to be addressed. So that's, wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that option for residents or for yourself, and it can either be done on a PC or on a phone or whatnot. So,
Very good. Anybody have any questions in regards to that? Mr. Schneider?
Through you, Mr. President, to Nick. Thank you. You're always very efficient whenever I've reached out to you, so I appreciate that.
of course.
Just a quick question, because a lot of times when we talk to residents in new developments, they like to complain that there's no street lights yet, because I feel like the developments are happening quicker than you guys can catch up. What's your average turnaround time, would you say, after a street? I don't know if you can give us that info so we can share it with the residents when they call.
Yeah, each individual development that gets put in a work request queue, so it really is depending on where that individual development is on our work queue. If you're getting specific questions, please just give me a call, and I can get you specifics for that individual development or that street or what's going on, so you can give that information to the residents.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis and then Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Chair. Hi, Nick. So you're saying residents, and I know we have turned in for State Route 57 between Bell Avenue and the Turnpike on both sides of the street. We have about 7 to 8 lights out there been out. And then we have West River in between Ford Road and down to David Drive. We have several lights out on both sides, and they have been reported. So when you saying resident, what are we doing about our main street lights?
Yeah, please bring those to my attention. I know I spoke with Safety Service about the issue at 57, so I'm escalating that internally. So that's generally the process. If they're not getting reported, please let me know. And Safety Service does a really good job of doing that, and the mayor does that as well. So the issue with 57 has been brought to my attention. We're getting answers for that. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Tolet?
Through you, Mr. President, to Mr. Katsaros.
Perfect. It's better than I said it, so.
This week,
Noted.
repaired, had a street light on Lexington repaired that a neighbor had an issue with. I worked it through with Assistant Safety Service Director Lesh. He and I both followed up. It was done very quickly, so please, if you have any issues, work with Safety Service Director's office. They're outstanding. They work very closely with Nick. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, very good. Safety Service Director, do you want to weigh in on, or enough said?
Probably enough said, Mr. President, but I mean, Nick and I communicate pretty regularly. I did just reach out to him about the ones on 57 and the one on East Bridge. You know, those are kind of long strings, so if we can get those cleaned up, it's kind of like, you know, multipliers. So, you know, we got like 12 done or something, you know, so that's exciting. But we'll keep up on them. You know, I do think it's probably a tough time to work with the weather and stuff in some days. So we'll just keep sending them, and I'm sure he'll keep getting them done.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming up and informing us.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
President's referrals and remontrances. Number 1, Community Development and Finance. Number 2, Community Development and Finance. Number 3, Finance. Number 4, Finance. Number 5, Finance. Number 6, Finance. Number 7, Utilities, Safety and Environment. Number 8, Utilities, Safety and Environment. Item 9, received and placed on file in the clerk's office. Petitions and remontrances from the lobby.
There are none.
Petitions and remontrances from council members.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
There are none.
Resolutions, first reading.
There are several. Sponsored by rules. A resolution authorizing the mayor to appoint 5 members to the Elyria Bicycle Advisory Committee in accordance with Chapter 182 of the Elyria Codified Ordinances and declare an emergency.
Mr. Sarah.
I move that this be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Callahan. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2025-7. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution finding that city has unfit for municipal use certain city property.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2025-8. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution finding that the city has unfit for municipal use certain city property.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Snyder. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2025-9. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolution second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances, first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director of the City of Elyria to dispose of city property that is unfit for municipal use.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-20. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director of the City of Elyria to dispose of city property that is unfit for municipal use.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-21. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance ratifying the mayor's application for, and if offered, the acceptance of the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC 2025 Energized Community Grants Fund, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-2022, 22, excuse me. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2024-193, known as the 2025 Temporary Appropriations Ordinance.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-23. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the transfer of vacant lands, real property from the City of Elyria to the Lorraine Metropolitan Housing Authority and declare an emergency.
Mr. Schneider.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet.
Question.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-24. An ordinance ratifying and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement between the City of Elyria and Local 277, Ohio Council 8 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, and declare an emergency.
You skipped one.
You just-
That's it.
Yeah.
We found it. An ordinance ratifying and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement by and between the City of Elyria and the Elyria Police Patrolmen's Association, EPPA, and declare an emergency.
Through you, Mr. President, I would ask at this time that Council would adjourn into executive session for purposes of collecting bargaining agreement discussion, also to discuss pending litigation, potential action to follow after adjourning out of executive session.
Very good. Per the law director's comment there, can I get a motion to go into the?
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Mr. Sears, second by Mr. Schneider. Roll
And a
call
roll call
vote.
vote, please.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Sierra?
Aye.
Mr. Armstrong?
Aye.
Mr. Oswald?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Tolet?
Aye.
Mrs. Sawerka?
Aye.
Mrs. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Schneider?
Aye.
Mr. Stewart?
Aye.
10 ayes.
At this time, I'd ask the general public in the audience, need to step out of the council chambers. Thank you.
It's 11.
Yep. I'm not involved. That's fine. Yeah. I don't.
Okay.
Cameras on?
Be here by 8. Okay.
Report 11 is going to waive any defect in service as well, without benefit of a committee report.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay. Mr. Clerk?
An ordinance ratifying and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement by and between the City of Elyria and the Elyria Police Patrolmen's Association, EPPA, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Tolet?
Mr. President, I would ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency. This is also without the benefit of, without the benefit of committee report.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-25. An ordinance ratifying and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement between the City of Elyria and Local 277, Ohio Council 8 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Tolet?
Mr. President, I would ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency. This also is without the benefit of committee report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All, on the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
One nay.
One nay.
One nay.
On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Got it? Yep, we got it. Yep, ordinance passes. Ordinance 2025-26. An An ordinance amending ordinance 2021-73, known as the salary ordinance, to amend the wages of Local 277, Ohio Council 8 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I would ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency without the benefit of a committee report and the waiving of service and the defectance.
Oh, second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion
Question.
on the suspension? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
One nay.
On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Noted. Ordinance 2025-27. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance is second reading.
There are none.
Ordinance is third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on Monday, 2/10, 6 p.m. Joint CD Finance requests Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 2/10, immediately following CD. Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 2/10, immediately following the joint. Utilities request the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Wednesday, 2/5, beginning at 6 p.m. And Strategic Planning requests the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Finance Director, and Law Director on Tuesday, 2/18, immediately following council.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
There's none.
Ms. Mitchell.
Seeing none, Mr. President, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. This meeting is adjourned.
I don't want to leave.